Hello once again, boys and girls. Welcome to the 33rd episode in the Crush Cash Game series. As always, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, just go ahead and click that little button. Looks like we have not much history on these tables. Ace King suited at the top left. Gonna be a fish on our right and potentially the button. Deuce Deuce 6 rainbow. This is a spot where we can basically exert lots of pressure because we raise under the gun. If the button calls, we're just going to be barreling through. Our range pretty much has his range in a hammerlock. If he has 8s, 9s, potentially 10s or 6x, then he's just not going to be able to withstand 3 barrels from an under the gun raise. As a matter of fact, I guess he may not know that, but if you do have history on an opponent and he's somewhat aggressive and capable of recognizing good barreling spots, I would say with a hand like 8s or 9s there, if we know he's going to be tripling with his whole range and we think that his under the gun range includes a decent amount of suited Broadway, suited aces type hands, then we can call down. Otherwise, even on Deuce Deuce 6, I think I just like folding the flop versus an under the gun bet. We're going to be facing future heat, and we're not going to be able to stand up to it. And that's one thing that's very important, is predicting, being able to predict future aggression and how we react to it. The 8-9 hand at the top right. Need to go back a sec and see the action. He opened, we flatted. Not really loving 8-9 on this board versus two sizable bets. Think he's gonna have a pretty strong range, especially barreling on this board. He can't expect a lot of folds. He could have a lot of, maybe ace 10 of heart type hands or queen jack of hearts that would barrel the turn as well. Yeah, I like folding on the river. There's really just not much that we beat with top 2 on that board. Although 8-9 is pretty much at the top of our range, I guess we do have some 8x of hearts that run out some backdoor flushes, maybe 10-8 of hearts. Fish doubles up at the top left, that's good news. At the bottom left, it looks like we have another fish on our left. And the 1 seat may be a weak player as well. Bottom right table, don't really know what's going on there. Not enough hands to know anything. Isolating with the 9s, basically just getting it in. We kind of want them to put the last bet in, but ace queen off, going to be a flat versus an under the gun. The 10s is going to be a 3-bet. King 8 deuce, we block ace king, we block king queen, we block the nut flush draw. We can expect villain to be barreling this board pretty wide. So he only bet 15, which is a pretty small bet. I wouldn't expect him to have tons of value making such a small continuation bet. With that being said, of course he flats. So we turn a gutter, and I think this is an okay spot to check behind the turn and try to realize some equity with our ace, a queen, a diamond we get to bluff at. Alas, we didn't get any good cards. The 8 pairing is pretty miserable because we're not checking back sets, we're not checking back 2 pair on the turn, so he basically just wins. The 10's hand at the bottom right that we just 3-bet and the guy 4-bet us and then typed in 4-bet bluff with an exclamation. If he's not something that you see every day, somebody type in 4-bet bluff, my automatic inclination is that the 2 seed is probably a fish and, you know, gave away the strength of his hand by typing. Although it would be quite clever if it was a reg who was actually 4-bet bluffing at an anonymous table. Gonna have to try that in one of my future videos. Type in 4-bet bluff when I'm 4-bet bluffing. Top right table doesn't look so great, but got some new blood sitting down. Maybe he'll bring some action. And guys, for all of y'all that enjoy watching my videos, I have 20 extra videos in my video vault at www.enhanceyouredge.com. Simply sign up to my newsletter and you can have access to my entire video vault. If the 5-6 is suited, then we're going to be peeling from the big blind. Offsuit, tough to peel. We can peel a little lighter because of the 5 seat being such a fish that the 3 seat is not going to be inclined to c-bet unless he flops some equity, some pair. He's not just going to be c-bet bluffing like out there on a complete limb. Limping around. Jack 4 off is pretty weak. I mean, even getting 7-1. 7-1, we can fold the Jack 4 and not lose very much. I'll put it that way. I don't know. It's very marginal limping in. Eight-10 suited at the top right. I think, yeah, we can easily raise because the 5 and 6 seat are both posters. Six seat limp raises us min, which doesn't really make a lot of sense, and we flop about as well as we can with 8-10 without flopping a pair. Tiny bet. Yeah, let's just go ahead and make the nuts on the turn. The second nuts with the backdoor flush draw, and he's betting like just tiny. If there was ever a prime example of somebody that is just clicking buttons, I think that is what happened in that hand. He's just, I don't know if he has a rhyme or a reason to what he's doing, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like safety inspector Homer Simpson, just clicking buttons and hoping good things happen. Not sure what happened at the bottom right table, but somebody appears to be not so pleased. King 9-7 monotone. I would expect the 2 seat to bet all of his aces and ace king type hands. Once he checks, I feel like he's just giving up, so stabbing with the jacks. Pot lead with the 8-9 off. We can actually just fold it. Yeah, not if he's a full stack, then we can peel with some implied odds. King 10 off is going to be an open from the cutoff if it's folded to us. We want to open wider with fish in the blinds. We always want the fish to be flatting out of position. Even we don't have to have super strong hands. I think we can still isolate the 16 with King 10 off, because the 5 seats of fish, he's playing 45% of his hands. King 10 is going to be doing okay, even against him. Not that King 10 is like a great hand by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a profitable hand to play in this spot, and that's pretty much what we should be looking for. Just looking for spots that we can play profitably. The better you get at recognizing those spots, the more opportunities you'll have. I read a tweet the other day by Red Chip Poker, and they basically said that, I can't remember the exact quote, but the point of it was that you have to learn from your aggression. When you take aggressive actions, you need to learn what worked, what didn't work, and then you can apply that in the future. And you got to be willing to experiment some, and you got to be willing to look kind of stupid sometimes. I remember when I was 10 years ago, when I had first started playing poker, very early on in my career, a friend of mine made a final table at the World Series of Poker, and asked me to sweat, and I was sweating, and it turns out that they ended up going bust by 4-bet shipping deuce 5 suited into aces. And it was a play that was pretty widely ridiculed at the time, but hearing their reasoning, basically the guy had been 3-betting out of control, and they were tired of it, and they made a stand, and obviously an aggressive stand with not such a weak hand, and those types of things just didn't happen back then. And I'm sure that they learned from that experience and grew, and they turned out to be a pretty good player, I would say. So there have been many instances where I feel like I've burned a buy-in trying to make a bluff work, or I've paid off rivers that I shouldn't pay off, or I've raised rivers that I shouldn't have raised, and we can let that deter us from being aggressive in the future, or we can look at the situation analytically and say, well, I did invest an obnoxious amount of money in this spot, but I did learn a few lessons, and then we apply those lessons in the future. So 3-betting the 6-7 off at the bottom left. The cold min 4-bet is not going to be good. Look, and we made the nuts with our 6-7 versus ace and kings. We had a feeling that was coming. That is a prime example of bad timing for me. 3-betting kings from the cutoff, and the big blind wakes up with aces. We could open the King 10 off at the bottom left, but these blinds appear to be pretty aggressive with their 3-betting. They're gonna know. They're gonna look at the situation as a pretty good squeeze opportunity, I would think. with the button flatting with most of their hands. They can isolate squeeze with a very wide range, so that's going to make me a little more selective on my opens from under the gun and in middle position. All right, we're gonna try another 3-bet with the queen 9. Hopefully this one works out better than the last one. Defending the ace tray versus the button clicking shorty. On the river, we're not really in danger of ever losing. The big question is, does he actually have anything to call with, or will he just randomly jam? And we opted to check call, thinking that he pretty much doesn't have a hand that can call. So our only hope of getting that last bet is to have him put it in himself as a bluff. If you're going to be losing coin flips playing 400 no limit, the $60 variety are the kind that you want to lose all day, I think. Opening a7 suited at the bottom right under the gun can be a little loose. If they were to know our true under the gun opening range, they could attack us pretty relentlessly, and we would be forced to tighten up. But they don't know. To them, we just appear to be some 8-8 player over the first 24 hands. The button clicker at the top right doubled up twice in a row from the poor 5 seed and then hit the road. Ace jack, we block ace queen, we block queen jack. Just going to be raising that bet, expecting villain to fold a decent amount of the time. King queen suited at the bottom left. If the button peels and the blinds squeeze, we're going to have a bit of a problem. Flatting with the ace-8, not loving the spot though, with villain betting out 3 ways. Now it's we got very, very fortunate run out. I don't think the 4 is the greatest of cards for us to go ahead and barrel with our king queen. There are some good cards, a 10, a jack, king and queen obviously, an ace we can also bet. Even if the tray pairs or the 5 pairs, I don't really mind continuing on the turn. Again, it's one of those spots like the deuce-6 earlier where our range should be crushing his range, so that gives us license to bet. Bottom left table doesn't look so appealing anymore. Top right table looks okay. The 5 seat looks to be loose type player. Jack 6 at the top left. Should be an open if it's folded to me. Unlikely though, because the 5 seat is a pretty juicy spot. We can isolate even a hand as bad as Jack 6. Hate folding the Jack 10 suited to the small blind squeeze, especially with the squeezer being so active with 3-betting. Had they checked me with the Jack 6, I would have gladly thrown out a bet. And that is the curse of the bad short stacks. They put bets in and only get action when they, when they're doing very poorly. If he waits, lets me put a bet in, and then check raises all in, then he's gonna not only get an extra bet, but he's gonna be facing a weaker range. Peeling at the top right table with almost a family pot. I would expect the 5 seat to have a pretty strong range leading out 5-way action on ace 10 6. I would expect the 1 seat to have a very strong range raising the 5 seat. If the 1 seat has draws, I would expect the draws to check back on this turn. I think it's so. We got an instant check raise minimum. I mean, the 5 seat is basically repping sets 2 pair plus. The 1 seat river to royal, and I have to say that is pretty atrocious play by the 1 seat there. Just, there was he had $88 left after the check raise, and that money's going in the middle no matter what the river comes. Like, you do have a royal draw, but you can call to realize your equity and play the river just perfectly because of the way that the hand was played out. Why would you jam the last 88, only get called by jam the last 88 with no chance of getting a fold when villain can never fold the river? It's just pretty poor play by the 1 seat there. Min 3-bet by the 5 at the top right. Would expect him to be pretty strong, even though there is a potential that he's on a little bit of tilt after his ace 10 hand. Min raise at the top left versus the weak fish type player. Very easy peel with 6-7. Against an aggressive type regular player, that board is one that I would attack. I would raise a lot of hands with in position, but because he's a passive fish type player, I feel like he's going to be playing pretty straightforward, and he's a calling station, so no reason to try to bluff a calling station. We just call with our hands, and if we have a premium hand, then we 3-bet, isolate, and put ourselves in a good position to make some extra bets post flop. Tray 4 suited at the bottom right is a perfectly reasonable hand to c-bet on the 6-7 queen board. and if we do get called, pretty sure we're firing a bullet on the turn, expecting villain to peel some with his 6s and 7s. As a matter of fact, if villain does peel, we're also betting diamonds. Diamonds, probably 8s, 9s, and 10s on the turn as well. The only card that really sucks for us would be like a queen. Top left, our weak player got a little injured, and now we get a little excited with ace king suited, but alas, he just snap folds. Jack 10 suited at the bottom left. Due to the fact that the big blind appears to be a fish, we should be opening 3x instead of our normal click. And we also don't want to isolate. We don't want to isolate ourselves versus a competent, aggressive player in the cutoff. We can just flat Jack 10 suited on the button and invite the big blind in the pot. We are stabbing on ace, ace, 8, and then the tray of hearts comes on the turn. I don't think the 4 seed doesn't have like any flush draws really, so it's going to be a good card for us to bet. Even if he has ace X, the river is going to be a pretty tough spot for him once we fire. He's likely to have kings through 9s and some 8x's once he plays check call out of position. Very unlikely to have I mean, he just doesn't have any flushes, frankly. Ace 10 off at the top left. I mean, he gives us a great price, but I think it's just going to be a peel. Villain is so bad, so nitty with his 3 bets that his range is likely to just have us completely murdered there. And we get negative implied odds on ace high flops. We get negative implied odds for 10 high flops. We end up putting money in bad post flop. So that was a bad peel by me, despite the fact that he gave us a very great price with his tiny 3 bet. No idea what just happened there with the aces and trays hand. Let me see. Under the gun open, cut off flats. Small blind squeezes pretty huge. One seed, after some delay, decided to go nuts with his trays and raise the c-bet. And obviously once they raise, they pretty much have to call. All in all, not the greatest of plays by the trace. They can just fold it pretty safely. The small blind is 10-10-5. I mean, the small blind is a very tight player, and we expect him to have all over pairs in his range. Not a ton of ace kings. Now the nit is upset, and the 1 seed is defending their play because that just happened to them at another table. And really, the 3 seats just, there's no reason to go out of line here. To, you know, them typing in the chat box, it, you know, for one, it doesn't do anything for the game. It doesn't make the game better. 2, the 3 seed is just losing his mind at the keyboard right now. He's completely lost his focus. He's off his game. Typing is going to make him play worse and just cost him money. Trust me, I know. I've gotten into typing worse before, and I always find myself whenever I would type in the chat, and normally the times that I start typing in the chat are when somebody berates a fish, and then I stick up for him, and then I end up just totally focusing on the chat, forgetting everything that's going on in the actual games, and, you know, start playing my C+ game instead of my A game, and that's just not good. If you're going to be that upset about, you know, getting your aces cracked, like he should have never gotten action with his aces in the first place, and then when he did get action, he got the money in good, and he just happened to lose. Like, you know, just stop crying. Three betting the 1 seed at the top right table again. King 8 rainbow. I don't expect him to fold to our c-bet a ton, but we are going to be firing multiple shells at this pot. I assume that he flatted out, you know, out of position with like a queen jack suited, maybe an ace x suited, jack 10 suited type hand, and just wave the white flag. If he does have a pocket pair, he's more than likely peeling. And again, that's just going to be one of those spots where he has some kings in his range, but he doesn't have a ton, and we have kings all in our range, so we can pretty much just fire at will. Looks like we got about 2 minutes left in our video. I want to thank you all for watching. Once again, if y'all haven't subscribed, click the button and check out the 20 free videos at enhanceYourEdge.com. Peeling with the queen jack suited out of position, turning a double gut shot. That's a pretty weak bet by the 1 seed. I think we can raise. We can raise pretty profitably with our double gut shot plus flush draw. Something that's likely to be going through Villain's head is his silly little Trey's hand that he just played. Like, he's not going to want to get out of line again at that table, especially because everybody just saw what he did, and that makes people less inclined to get out of line. So typing to me in the chat box trying to get a read. But luckily for me, I maintained my poker face and dragged the pot. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you all have a great weekend, make lots of money, make lots of good decisions, and until next time, take care.